facilities. With me not actually with me exactly, is Grant Jennings, the author of the report, and also David Stickskill, who may be able to answer some questions should you have questions that are better suited for them to answer. So we are here today to seek a decision from the Waitemata Local Board on whether you wish to proceed to consultation to seek community views on installing a new pedestrian loop track recently in the recently cleared area of the Western Springs Lakeside to Waitemata Park. I'll take the report as read. If I could just quickly, through you, Chair, run through the executive summary and the options as a reminder. There is currently one pedestrian track connecting Westview Road in Western Springs Lakeside to Waitemata Park. There is a current opportunity to develop an additional pedestrian track that connects to the existing track, which would create a loop walking experience through the revegetating native forest area. The Western Springs Lakeside to Waitemata draft management plan went out for consultation in August 2018, which included 2 sections of pedestrian track in the forest area. The new loop track, in addition to the existing access track, was well supported by the community through consultation in the development plan then, and the approach to future path development was articulated in the adopted Western Springs Lakeside to Waitemata Park draft development plan at page 25 as follows. New footpath connections and any upgrade to the existing path through the forest area with pine with native understory will only be considered once the management regime for the pines has been confirmed and after full consultation on route options with relevant stakeholders. And then that plan was adopted by the local board at its business meeting on the 18th of August. The provision of an additional pedestrian loop track was discussed with members of the Waitemata Local Board that were present at a site visit on the 19th of June earlier this year. And at this meeting, interest was expressed in obtaining further information about a proposed loop track. Consultation with relevant stakeholders, including Manawhenua and residents of Westview Road, wider neighbouring community, would be required on any proposed loop track option. And the interest is high in consultation via the proposed Auckland Council Have Your Say website would be recommended should the board wish to consider that. There is an estimated cost to undertake the design and physical works for any works on the new loop track at approximately $83,000. And if the board decides to proceed with the new pedestrian loop track following consultation, the board would need to allocate the entire amount from the local board's LDI funding. At present, there is no funds allocated to that. So we have option 1, which is no extension to the pedestrian track network, and that's at no additional cost. And there are some advantages of not extending the pedestrian track network. That is that will give everyone the opportunity to take a pause to consider if a new track is the best option or whether there are other opportunities, or doing nothing. Not creating another man-made structure within the park. That the proposed alignment of the track can be further planted to enhance the natural environment. That the proposed that would be allocated to the additional track could be used for another project within the local board area, and no increase in maintenance costs for any additional track maintenance. Option 2 comes with an estimated cost of $83,000 of LDI CapEx, and the advantages of this: it would be creating a native bush experience, providing an opportunity for the public to enjoy the beauty of the emerging growth of the native forest. A short route that would enable all age groups to undertake the walk. Just out to the Owaraka Mine and the Western Springs Lake and out to the Waitakere Ranges. Protection for the young plants as they continue to grow by keeping people within the tracks. And an opportunity for a link to go in there, may provide as a destination in its own right, and an opportunity for local schools and early childhood centres to learn about native plant species. So today,
hello.
We've come to the local board to seek your decision and your recommendation how we should move forward with the consultation or not on this project. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. That was muted. Okay, thank you. Any questions of Julie?
Graham Gunthorpe.
Graham, go for it.
Julie, thanks very much for presenting. Having walked the proposed area for the track, I think it's a great idea. But one of the constituents, Gail Baldock, has quite rightly raised the problem of cyclists cutting through the park and it being dangerous. That the existing path and this path could be designed in a way that will disincentivise cyclists from travelling down here, particularly at speed.
I do beg your pardon, just trying to find that unmute button. Yes, but we've included in the report some opportunity that we believe that there is with regard to assisting with cyclists that may use the track. We've listed about 3 or 4 or 5 options there. We could look at introducing some bylaws to restrict the use of reserve use for mountain bikes. I think a main thing really is around education with regard to working with the local schools and the local mountain bike club up at the Arch Hill end of the area and really working with them. I think there's a great story to tell here, and if we can take the community with us as far as educating them around not using their bikes on there, then that's the best way for us to really move forward with this. I think any other there are physical chicane type barriers that we can use at entry points, but the difficulty comes, I guess, with some of that is that you might be restricting small children on little bikes that they sort of just push along, with their feet kind of thing. So there's certainly work that we can do in that space, and working in with the local clubs and the local schools and things, I think is a really great starting point with regard to awareness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, go for it, Alex.
So I've got a few, actually. There is no funding allocated to this project at the moment. So what program do you propose we cut in order to pay for it?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the idea would be that if the board wished for us to do the consultation, that we would go and do that and bring that information back to the board in January, early February, and then we would need to have a conversation which program you would be seeking to push out, I guess, or cut, and we would do that in line with Katrina Morgan and your financial person.
Okay, the second question is is a loop track allowed, bearing in mind the conditions of the resource consent and other agreements that have come through the court about restoring the forest to its old condition?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, it's our understanding that it is a permitted activity.
What would be the ongoing maintenance of the track? And also the seating and I don't know for sure whether you intend to maintain a view shaft by cutting trees down in the future, but what are the costings for all this?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't have those costings on hand, I'm afraid. I thought I did, but I don't. As far as the maintenance, specifically, as far as the maintenance of the track is a metre wide, so it's a gravel aggregate track. It would be minimal, but we would bring that back through to you in January.
Okay. Did you anticipate cutting down trees in the future to maintain a view shaft, or is that not part of this plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely. We don't anticipate cutting trees to maintain the view shaft.
Thank you. Does the 83,000 include the signage that is proposed to help school children engage with the natural environment and wildlife?
Sorry, when you talk about the signage, which signage is that, sorry?
Educational signage on wildlife proposed.
I do apologise. I'll need to come back to you with regard to that.
So this was in the report. It was, yes, you know the signage I'm talking about. There's an opportunity to provide signage for children about local flora and fauna? Something like that?
I'm just quickly looking at the report. I think the piece around if that's pertaining to the piece around the mountain bike users on the site.
No. There was about signage. And
I'll
it
need
wasn't
to come back
about
to you
mountain
about
bike
that, I'm
users.
sorry.
It was educational signage about wildlife, which we've mentioned in workshops before, and it is
Okay.
proposed in the. It would be
I would
helpful.
anticipate then that it is covered in that cost.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thanks, Chair.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Other members got questions?
Sarah Trotman, yes, I do. I've got a number of questions. In no particular order, the tree felling was quoted at about 400,000, and the budget's come in at over 4 times that at 1.8 million. If this 83,000 exceeded, will the excess come out of the community facilities budget?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So at the moment, the QS that we've had on the small amount of work that we've put into this, awaiting your decision, is that it will cost 83,000. So that's as far as we've got with the pricing. At one of the initial meetings that we had, I think it may have been the workshop that I came to, we didn't want to proceed with anything in case it was something that the board didn't want to do. So the cost sits. Not anticipating any blowout of that cost.
But if on the unlikely circumstance that it does exceed, will that be something that community facilities would pick up, or would you be expecting the Waitemata to pick, local board to pick that up?
We would really need to address that at that time.
Right, that's awkward. Okay, one of the material matters for me to consider when I vote is the track that was established to bring the trees down has not yet been disestablished. When do you expect that will happen?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the land as it currently lies is the finished product for the site. So if the board decided to not proceed with the consultation and there was no track built, it would stay as it is. That is the finished lie of the land, if you like.
Sorry,
that answers your question.
Yeah, not really. So when the track went in to fell the trees, in effect, some trees were felled and then butted up against that were their trunks, and then it was backfilled to allow a flat surface to enable a temporary track. That temporary retaining wall, for want of a better description, is still there, and the resource consent ensures that the lay of the land goes back to its original flow. So I'm concerned about that, and it's been raised a number of times by members of the community.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so that the current state of the bank in the area you're speaking of is as it is finished.
Any more questions, Sarah?
Yes, yeah. Look, I think that we've lost, not just on this issue, the social licence to engage with our community. If we are going to hear what has been presented to us over the last few months, in fact, in the whole time I've our local board, it would be fair to say that the majority of the people that present to us consider that they have been manipulated and that engagement's been manipulated. So there's a real lack.
Sarah, that's part of the debate. Have you got any more questions of this?
So there's a real lack of confidence by our community. How would you recommend addressing, if we vote for the consultation, how will community facilities manage that? And just for the record, I think Taryn's doing a wonderful job.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So the what we are proposing in the report with the wider community have your say format, and we would bring that would be undertaken within the next couple of months, and then that information would come back through to you at the end of January, beginning of February. Not sure if that answers your question.
Look, it doesn't really, but maybe I'll take it offline.
Certainly.
It's fine, Sarah. Do other members?
Chair, sorry, I've got another one.
Yep.
And this is just around timing. We haven't worked out what we're going to cut to do this. And I'm just wondering whether in theory it's possible to get all this information before we go out and consult, because we also know there are some other projects that we have yet to contract that are really important to us. And I suspect that what will be cut are projects that are not yet contracted. And I'm a bit the regenerative farm and perhaps some other things that are important to us. So I'm a little bit loath to put loads of money into a consultation until we have a better idea of what the impact will be on our work program. So I'm wondering, will it make an enormous difference to community facilities if we make this decision in a few months' time rather than today?
Good point.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So
this is covered to a degree in the report, but Julie, so I can speak to that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So, no, should the board wish to not proceed or other and want to pick this up later in the new year or in February or March or whenever that might be, that would be fine.
So if we were to put in a track, we've got a year or two, presumably, to put in a track without it causing problems.
I think it probably needs to be done within the next 6 months, what we are looking for is obviously a decision on the consultation so that work can start, should that be something that the board wish to consider. But fully appreciate that it is a lot of money and there's only a limit. So, if it's not a priority, then...
I like the idea of it. I just want to know the impact. Yeah.
Sure.
If we were to ask you to come back and just sort of propose the things that would be swapped out, how long would it take you to gather that material together?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would need to check the agenda dates for the next meeting, but I would like to say, I can see Katrina Morgan's online. I'd like to say that we could probably do that quite relatively quickly. We would aim for the next meeting. We haven't missed those. Certainly, if not the next meeting, then the meeting after.
Okay.
Through the chair, can I just add to that response? In terms of looking across your budgets and prioritising your budgets, that will be part of your work programming discussions for next financial year, where you will need to assess your priorities across your whole budget. I would expect, if this was something that the board wanted to proceed with, that would need to form part of that prioritisation discussion for the next few months and incorporated through your annual budget consultation process of looking at your priorities as well.
Can I jump in here as well? Through the chair, it's Mark, your lead financial advisor. The part of this proposal is to fund it from your LDI CapEx, which is purely at the local board's discretion. As you know, some of that funding was cut through the emergency budget and the recovery budget, but you do have quite a bit available. So you have over $500,000. So once going through your priorities, if you did decide that this was higher up on the list, then you definitely have headroom to fund it from your own discretionary funding.
Mark, could I ask you whether we have enough for a regenerative farm?
Through the chair, I couldn't answer that at this stage. I'd need to see the costings of what that would cost and the timings to be able to make that call.
Could I ask Mark then, how much headroom do we have unallocated?
I haven't got the spreadsheet up in front of me, but I think it's about 6 or 7. So you did allocate some in your last work programming process through the LTP, but you did have unallocated amounts flowing into that. So I can get you that at some stage in the next couple of days, fully reconciled.
Thanks.
Look,
Okay.
I've got another question.
Go for it, Sarah.
I just want to remind people that, of course, this is a significant ecological area. But the question that I had was around point 7 of the executive summary around the loop track being a site visit with the Waitemata local board. Julie, you may not be aware, but we worked, certainly both Alex Bonham and I worked very hard to get that site visit, and it wasn't to discuss the loop track, it was actually to have a look at the works and answer questions that the community had. So I worry that the community will think it's disingenuous to suggest that the local board met on site specifically to discuss the loop track, and I'm just wondering again, as we consult with community, that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So I think with regard to the consultation, it's been very clear through the previous documentation for the development plan for the site with regard to the work that was proposed to be undertaken through that plan in future years, and the piece of work, the wording pertaining to the loop track, if you like, was removed until the pine trees were managed. Now that that's happened, and we could certainly, that's the angle for this. It was in the development plan and now it's not, and the option is, would you like to consider this loop track? But I understand what you're saying, and certainly wasn't the intention with the way that it's been recorded in the report. So it would be just through the wording that we use through the have your say. It would be clear that it was in the development plan and now it isn't, and would the community like it back in?
Thank you. That's a comprehensive answer, and I've just got to find.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier, in fact, on 2 occasions, the name of the engagement person that was allocated to this project. Unfortunately, I don't recall them ever coming to present to the board, despite the assurance that that was why the role was established. So I guess the question I've got is, the engagement person that was allocated to this project didn't end up doing a huge, as far as the community is concerned, and I can't speak for the whole local board, but certainly as far as I'm concerned. Can you just talk to that in terms of going forward?
Certainly. So through you, Mr. Chairman, so I attended the walk over the site with regard to the site visit on the 19th of June, I think it was, and consequently then I brought the report to the workshop because I'd been on site with some members of the board, and now I'm bringing it to the full meeting with regard to looking for your recommendation. So if you were meaning, I mentioned Grant Jennings, I'm not sure if that's who you meant.
No.
No, okay, because what I was going to say is that because he hasn't been at any of those opportunities, I've brought this again to the local board. So, sorry, who are you referring to?
Look, I'm not going to mention it. The only substantive response to the expressions of concern that I have raised on this whole Western Springs forest issue, response from the Chief Executive with a very quite a ridiculous code of conduct complaint referring to emails that I've sent where I've specifically mentioned staff names, and of course I have no issue with any of those emails and wouldn't mind if they're on the front cover of the NZ Herald, but I don't want to risk having my hands slapped by the Chief Executive again, so I'll take that offline.
Okay, are there any other speakers? If not, I'll move that the Waitemata Local Board request staff to with relevant stakeholders, including Mana Whenua, the residents of Westview Road neighbouring community, and the public on the possibility of installing a new pedestrian loop track linking off the existing track and connecting Westview Road and the Western Springs Lakeside to Waitemata Park. And note that staff will report back on the findings of the consultation to the local board once completed, for the local board to then make its decision. Is there a seconder for that resolution?
Great. You go, Julie.
Okay, seconded Julie Sandilands. So just speaking to it, clearly the arguments for and against the building of this loop track are pretty evenly balanced, and I don't think any other board members have got a strong commitment to doing this. But I think now is the time ecologically and in terms of relating to the local community, if we do regard it as a serious possibility to find out what their views are and what are their arguments for and against this occurring. It does have some benefits and it does have some costs, and those range from financial, potentially ecological. So I'm keen to find out the views now. I think this is the time that we can get a clear idea of this compared to other projects that are a priority to us when we need to make those choices. Otherwise, we'll feel we'll have missed the opportunity for this to be considered. So we go out for consultation at this stage, because I think that this is the stage, rather than bringing up later when there's been on and the like, and relitigating. I think this is the time to do it, and then we'll get the information back from the public, their views, and the arguments for and against from their point of view, to make a decision in comparison with other projects. So I've moved accordingly. Julie, do you want to speak at this stage?
I don't think I could put it as eloquently as you. Those are exactly my reasons. I just think that we should know all the information and then make a decision. So go to consultation.
Okay, other speakers.
Can I raise an amendment?
You can.
And this is just to amend A, to request staff to provide more information on other potential LDI CapEx projects prior to consultation with relevant stakeholders, etc., etc. I don't want to delay this decision for 6 months, but sorry, I should let's see if there's a seconder.
Yeah, is there a seconder? This is amendment. Is there a seconder? That seems to lapse then. Okay, yes. We go back to.
Yes,
sorry.
We do.
Yes, sorry, it's Corinne Leone.
Okay, right, we've got a seconder, so you're now speaking to the amendment.
Thank you. I'm not
really... I can't see you, so just shout out if I'm rushing on before you've had a chance to respond. Okay,
Thank
Alex.
you, Chair. Yes, it's not a dramatic change, and I put the amendment because I don't want to stop this for 6 months. I would just like to delay it for a month so that we can actually consider all of our LDA projects before going out to consultation, because consultation does raise an expectation. And so it seems prudent to me to just work out, is this the best use of our funds? How can we divide up our LDI CapEx? Are there other greenway projects? Are there other improvements we want to do? So that we can just come back and go, yeah, this is a really good use of funds. We'll go out and see what the community thinks. Maybe just delaying it for a month. And as we're still in COVID and it's probably not the best time to consult, I don't think it's a major problem.
Thank you, Alex. Corinne, do you want to speak at this stage?
No, that's fine.
Other speakers? I'll, at this stage, intend to vote against the amendment because I think this is the process by which we'll get the information so we can compare with the other LDI projects. So I deciding to do this, making the decision now is appropriate rather than a month's time, but we're getting information both about this project and the other good rival projects to make a decision on. So I think now's the time to pass this. Other comments from people?
Unfortunately, Alex, I'm against the amendment. Apologies.
Other speakers?
Sarah would like to say something. I think we need to remember that this whole matter is going back to the Environment Court, so it's probably a really good idea not to be overcomplicating the Western Springs Forest issue at the moment. I don't think, well, I certainly have no appetite to risk another overrun on the Western Springs Forest project when community facilities are not prepared to put their hand up to fund any overrun. And Chair, you mentioned that now is the time to hear from our community. Actually completely disagree with that. We've just heard from 3 people that represent a huge database of business owners, and they have said you are tone deaf going out and consulting at this point in time. So I think the other thing that we need to remember is that the community have laid numerous formal complaints with the Chief Executive over the last 5 months. In fact, some of those were laid more, and they still haven't had the courtesy of a response, let alone a formal outcome. So I think we need to be very mindful that now is not the hour to be out and consulting.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other speakers on the amendment at this stage? Okay, we'll put the amendment by division. Kim, if you could make sure that the wording of the amendment is quite clear. I won't be able to see it, but everyone else needs to be able to see it, and then we'll have a division. This is for or against the amendment only, whether you prefer what Alex has moved as being better than what the original motion was.
I've expanded it, Alex. Can you just check it and advise any corrections?
Request to apply more efficient other LDI projects before proceeding with consultation on possibilities. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Visible, all of you understand quite clearly what Alex is moving and are able to make a decision on whether you prefer that. Okay. We'll do the division then.
Just wait one moment. Kim's still cleaning up the sheets.
Great. So
okay, we're good to go, Richard.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Yes, we need to co-chair this. That's good. Thanks.
So we'll start with you, Richard. Are you for, against, or?
I'm against.
And Alex?
For.
Sarah?
Against.
Against the amendment, Sarah? To delay? Okay.
Adriana?
Against to delay, unfortunately. Sorry, Alex.
Quite all right, Adriana.
Kieran? Graham?
Against.
And Julie?
Against.
That amendment is
a question, Chair, on, I don't see anywhere there that talks to a delay, Alex. I see the words for proceeding with, but that's not delaying.
Well, it implies delaying because we have to get more information before going ahead.
Okay, with that explanation, does that change anyone's vote? Okay,
no, please.
So the amendment is lost 5-2. We go back to the original. Are there any further speakers on the substantive?
Can I speak again, or am I not allowed
to? Absolutely. You haven't spoken on the substantive. You just spoke to the amendment, so that's fine.
Thank you. Yes, I am ambivalent. I would quite like to know. Thanks, but I tend to agree very much with Sarah that if this is going up before the courts, this is not a moment to have a consultation, because it raises a certain expectation that may not be able to be met. And so I really do think that we should delay and until any court issues are resolved, even though I'm not against a loop track really if the community wants it, and this is the thing that we want more than other things. So against, but I'm very ambivalent about it.
Yeah, I think we all are, but we'll do the best we can.
Good choice, Alex.
Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put I don't need to reply, we'll put the substantive resolution by division. So Kim, if you could put that up.
Sorry, I didn't realise I had my mic off. I wonder why you weren't responding.
No, I didn't abstain. I'm going to vote on it.
Yes. So I'll start with you, Richard.
Kim, sorry, Kim. Do you want to just delete the existing for and against?
Yeah. This is quite a meeting.
This may be the last one, but who knows?
Yeah. So we'll start with you, Richard. The for or against?
Yeah, for.
And Alex?
Reluctantly against.
And Sarah?
Against.
Christy?
For.
Kieran?
Against.
And Graham?
For.
And Julie?
For.
So that's 4 votes for and 3 against.
Right, that resolution is carried. We now come to the landowner approval for the city rail links within Basque Park, and Darren